Today, I'm going to share with you the exact habits and routine that have kept me lean, energized, and shredded for almost a decade now. And the magic thing is, it's not from following a specific diet, my friend. You know, I've done carnivore, keto, fasting, high carbs, low carbs. I've done everything. I struggle with binge eating. I've been through all the same struggles you've been through, and I still battle with certain things. And it's not from following magic workouts either, believe it or not. It's from a solid routine that is cemented into my lifestyle and fundamental habits, which I stick to for the most part. And I'm not perfect by any means. However, the first thing I want to share, right, is let's get straight into the nutrition piece. I've made a few mistakes this week, which you'll benefit from. Now, I always talk about keto, carbs, and how low carbohydrates combined with high stress can have a massive negative impact on sleep, right? And I've learned another lesson this week. Keto, the benefits from me of eating in the daytime, low carbohydrates, just to recap, I've touched on this, right? In the daytime, having a low carb meal, high in protein and fats, midday, that's when I've been breaking my fast. Beef, avocado, eggs, ghee oil, boom, hits the spot. Sometimes some dark chocolate. I had some just before this. I had 100%, no sugar, right? Normally tastes like dog shit, by the way, but this one tastes great. So dark chocolate I'll sometimes have as well, but it's at least 85, 90%, at least 90% normally. So it's low carb still, right? But I haven't even been having much of that. That keeps me energized throughout the daytime. However, I pushed it a bit too far this week. What I noticed this week is I'm still trying to fix certain gut issues that I have, right? So twice this week, I had one meal a day. And as you know, I normally have 2 meals a day. On Tuesday, great. I had one meal, okay? I was feeling a bit off. Energy was down. And I just needed to recharge. Sometimes I'm a sucker for pushing too hard, overworking, etc. Right? And I just literally I had to slow down. I went and had a sauna, had one meal at around about 4:30 p.m. That meal had a decent amount of carbs, moderate carbs, right? I think I had some Greek yogurt, I had some honey, berries. I think I had a banana as well. And maybe I had some white rice, probably about 100 grams of carbs. Slept great that night. In fact, the best sleep I've had in a while. REM sleep wasn't impacted negatively. Now, if you don't track your sleep, you don't know what your sleep is like. So a lot of people say, I sleep great. If you think you sleep great and you feel amazing every day on top form, no issues with energy, no afternoon crash, you don't get cravings, then you're winning, right? But most people say this, but they don't know. You don't know what you don't know. What gets measured can get managed. I track my sleep meticulously. I use a thing that I put on my bed that tracks it, right? That keeps my bed cool. I also use a ring that I use, which tracks it meticulously. And Thursday, when I did the one meal a day, right? I did it again because I was getting gut issues. I had a low carb meal. So I ate keto that day. And I said, right, I'm going to do keto because that normally fixes my gut issues. But for all you carnivore and keto heads, if you get gut issues and you just click your fingers and go carnivore keto and that's working for you, great. But you know, you're still not getting to the root cause of that issue, right? It can help, but it's not getting to the root cause. And I'm still fixing up my root cause, right? But I went to bed, boom, that day when I had the low carb meal. So I just had beef mince. I think I had about 2,500 calories, beef mince, steak, ghee oil, avocado, olive oil, right? And then that night, absolutely horrendous sleep, right? REM sleep was terrible. Next day felt horrendous. 6 hours and 20 minutes. I woke up at 2 a.m., couldn't go back to sleep. Now, when you have low carbohydrates, remember, if you've got high stress and your glycogen levels are low, right? Your brain essentially goes into a bit of a survival mode. And brain stress, that's going to turn into more adrenal activation when you've got low glycogen as well. And that's what happened to me. My adrenaline was probably high, maybe cortisol when I woke up at 2 a.m. Took me an hour to go back to sleep. Felt terrible Friday. I learned that same lesson a few months ago where I was getting some gut issues. Right, I'm going to go keto, try and fix it. Sleep was terrible again, right? You think I would have learned the first time, but I tried my best, didn't work out. So you got to look at, I want to go deeper into this thing with sleep, right? And with cycling carbohydrates. So the reason I backload my carbohydrates in the evening is because, number one, carbohydrates, they help with performance. I feel better generally in the gym when I have carbohydrates the night before because I train the following morning, right? And also, it drastically improves my sleep. So you've got to look at tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid. Now, most tryptophan actually comes from turkey, chicken, and egg whites. So high protein foods as well contain those things. But if you combine that with maybe banana, cottage cheese. And in particular, as I was planning for this podcast, I had a light bulb moment where I thought, wow, Greek yogurt, I have most evenings. Dairy contains high tryptophan, and that tryptophan converts into serotonin in the brain, which helps you feel relaxed, helps with sleep, has a calming effect. And that serotonin then converts into melatonin. Melatonin is a sleep-induced hormone, right? So that was a big mistake I made this week, is trying to go keto again. So if you're someone who's high stress and you feel like you get not the best sleep, you get intermittent sleep, you find yourself still getting cravings when you're eating low carbs, you find yourself slipping on weekends, you need to fix your sleep and you need to cycle in some carbohydrates and do that strategically. Now, with some people, when they add in even things like honey, they end up going back to old behaviors and overeating. They get that sugar and then boom, they go back to square one. So not all carbs are treated equally. I mentioned potato as being in my top 5 foods, right? Now, potato is great if you can digest it and you don't get any issues with your gut, because it's slow releasing, it's a fibrous carbohydrate, and it'll help keep you satiated on top of, having your meat, for example. Honey can be great. Honey is not the same when you have it on its own, right? It's going to give you a big spike of blood sugar. If you're having honey, for example, with some Greek yogurt or whatever, or you're even having it just after a good solid meal of meat or whatever, and you have it, it's going to give you a steady release of insulin, right? And there's research to show now as well, honey can be effective for sleep because it can give you that steady release of insulin if you combine that with a protein fat meal, right? So meat, for example, even red meat or Greek yogurt like I have. So that was a big mistake I made this week. Another thing, right? I learned this last night, and I know this already. High sulfuric vegetables, such as broccoli, sprouts, especially sprouts, right? I had Brussels sprouts yesterday. Haven't had them for ages. Now, they call sprouts fart balls in the UK where I'm from, right? For obvious reasons. And that's exactly what happened. Without going into detail, I felt sorry for my missus last night. Had them. Instantly, I felt, oh, man, the gut was off. And then bad gut today. I think it impacted my sleep last night as well, because I was just, anyway, I'm not going to go into detail, putrid farts. It is what it is. So that was another lesson I learned. I love sprouts. I know they have that negative impact, but I had a bowl of roasted vegetables in Macelleria when I had my, in the restaurant, the only restaurant I eat, my usual grass-fed beef and eggs. I just trained, so I wanted some carbohydrates, had some sweet potato and pumpkin, like mixed vegetables, but they also added in sprouts this time, and boom, messed me up. So that was another lesson. So look, when it comes to food, ladies and gents, you got to look at, one, what can I adhere to? What feels easiest, right? The easiest approach is the one you're likely to stick to. For me, having carbohydrates in the evening, not only does it then feel easy, right? Because I enjoy eating carbohydrates, especially, if I have a little bit of berries or my Greek yogurt, maybe some banana here and there. I'm having my white rice, for example, with my meals. Fast to digest. White rice is better than brown rice. Brown rice contains anti-nutrients. White rice doesn't. So it's fast to digest. Yes, it hasn't got much nutrients in it, but it's a quick source of energy, easier on the gut for most people. So having that. And also, if you're having certain foods that are going to irritate your gut, so you have to really pay attention to how you feel, for example, 1 to 2 hours after you eat. Because if you're getting bloating, you're getting gut distress, you're farting, right? That's not normal. You can't normalize that. So you've got to get on top of those things, right? Gut, sleep, performance, and number one, what feels easier to stick to, right? Adherence is everything. Most people are not going to stick to keto, carnivore, low carbs forever. Again, if it's working for you, great. But most people do well when they cycle their carbohydrates, right? And like I say, this is not going to work for me now. I do this with some clients where on the lower training days, for example, they will have lower carbs. So they will have literally sometimes even keto or carnivore. And then other days in between, they'll throw in some white rice, they'll throw in some fruit maybe, or even potatoes, or even sometimes some steel cut oats, which are better than normal oats, right? To digest and stuff. And they'll feel better doing that. But most people can't do that, right? Because when you bring carbohydrates back in, it's kind of hard to detach from. But for me, it's been proven, the proof's in the pudding. I think I've adapted to a high stress lifestyle. I love what I do, but I work a lot, right? I'm creating this content for you guys. I'm serving clients a lot of the time. I'm always doing things within my business and I enjoy doing it. I enjoy putting good content out into the wall, but sometimes that comes at a cost, right? So for me, having those carbohydrates works better, right? So the biggest lesson, carbs at night, non-negotiable for me, backloading the carbs. Also, sprouts, a no-no, right? So pay attention to those high sulfuric vegetables, such as, and even high oxalate vegetables, your kales, your spinach, your broccoli, your cauliflower, your Brussels sprouts in particular. Cook those foods properly if you eat them. If you don't get any digestive issues, I would say it's a win eating those foods. High in fiber, high volume, low calories, right? Also, having one meal a day. Remember, I had one meal And I also had caffeine in the morning as well, right? Which I normally have. That's going to elevate cortisol. And that one meal then, when I had the carbohydrates, great, no problem. Dropped the stress levels likely and boosted my serotonin levels, boosted melatonin as well, because I had more tryptophan that day as well with having the Greek yogurt, for example, in the evening. The other day I did OMAD, one meal a day on Thursday. I had a low carb meal. It was basically keto. Sleep was absolutely terrible, right? So these are the things we got to dissect, because the most important thing really is the habits that you have in the evening and in the mornings, right? Now, a quick recap on the morning, for example, I actually had one more thing I wanted to say as well is a real fat loss hack, right, ladies and gents. Again, it's going to be sleep, right? You got to focus on getting good quality sleep, going to bed at the right time, regularity. That's one of the most important things. With sleep, it's going to bed at the same time and getting up at roughly the same time. Regularity, right? That the circadian rhythm, right? If you are not focusing on that regularity, social jet lag is a real thing. Even 15, I've been slacking on this, which I'll get to, right? But even 15 minutes more, let's say you go to bed at 10 p.m. normally and you then start going to bed at like 10:30, 11 o'clock, even that can mess with your circadian rhythm. Regularity, a dark room and a cool room, they're the most important things for sleep quality, right? And that is going to dictate how much you eat the next day. It's going to have a massive impact on your hormonal profile, insulin sensitivity, brain health. Remember, REM sleep is therapy for the brain. All the dreams you have and stuff, this is therapy for your brain. This is your brain recovering for everything that's going on in the daytime. And it improves like memory in particular, right? If your REM sleep is not up to scratch, your memory is going to be massively impacted. Then your decision making with food is going to be terrible. Deep sleep and REM sleep can affect that, but particularly in REM sleep, because then the next day, your brain's not recovered. Your hormones such as leptin is going to be lower, which is the satiety hormone. Ghrelin is going to be higher. That's the hunger hormone. And you're going to eat on average 44% more calories when you're sleep deprived. But going back in just to recap on the morning habits, right? When it comes to my routine and my habits, I said this on the last episode. I'm not going to bore you with it. Waking up, hydrate in the morning, have that before caffeine, game changer for energy, hydrating before you have your caffeine. I have been waiting 90 minutes on average, but this is another mistake I made this week as well. Sleep deprivation. I had that one night's poor sleep. Then I wanted to train the next day. And what I did then, because I needed to train just for my mental health that day, I ended up having caffeine a few times before training this week. So I want to be honest here. I mentioned on the last episode, I wait till 90 minutes before I have my caffeine. I'm not perfect with these habits. And I needed that caffeine before training. I had the caffeine twice on my two main sessions. I had caffeine before training this week, not after. I only did that once this week. And that is me. I'm not perfect. But for you, if you can have caffeine after you've hydrated in the morning, and also if you can, ideally, experiment with it like I do, right? In terms of habits. I'm playing around with it, and I played around with it enough to know now when I train, I've got more stamina in the gym. When I train, I'm less distracted. What I notice is when I have caffeine, we say it makes us more productive and better and stuff. But for me, I notice even when I'm in the gym, I'm playing around with like skipping tracks. I'm skipping podcasts and stuff that I listen to in the gym. And it just really distracts me when I have all that fake energy from caffeine. You know what I mean? But sometimes you just got to get it done and get to the gym and get a good session in. And I love that double espresso before training. Don't think I don't like it, but I know it benefits me more when I have it afterwards, right? I get more sustained energy throughout the daytime. So in the morning, generally in an ideal world, I'll wake, I'll hydrate, go to the gym, caffeine after when I'm good with my habits. And then I get my daylight, of course, in the morning. But breathing routine as well. There's something I want to touch on in terms of a daytime habit, right? If you can implement this into your daytime. I've been slacking on this and I haven't been doing it lately, right? But I'm just going to be honest with you. It really helps. Again, I've tracked this on my Aura. It even improves my sleep. It tracks I've just shouted the company out now. I didn't mean to do that. But tracking your stress, it tracks your stress in the daytime as well. So I notice my average stress is probably about 3 hours in the daytime. When I do my breath work, I do like 10, 15 minutes in the afternoon. I'll set it for like 10, 15 minutes, a timer, do deep breathing, put my phone away, no podcasting, just me and my thoughts, breathe in. My energy is better, my stress is lower, and it actually improves my sleep a bit. So if you can integrate even 5 minutes of breathing into your daytime, it can be an absolute game changer for how you feel. But more importantly, just being aware of your thoughts. Our emotions will drive the foods we eat. And we're always running away from our thoughts, whether it's social media, even if we're listening to a podcast, whatever we're doing, a lot of the times we're trying to run away from our thoughts and feelings. So just forcing yourself to do that 5-10 minutes with just your thoughts. And I need to get back to this, by the way. I'm being a bit of a hypocrite here. So perhaps I'll get back to this week. It's a game changer, right? So try implementing that in, and it sets the tone. So what you do in early in the daytime is going to set the tone for the rest of the daytime, right? So just to backtrack, fundamental habits for me, right, is first meal is keto, carnivore, midday, like I mentioned on the last episode. The last meal, then I'm going to add some carbs in, whether that's white rice and then maybe a little bit of berries or fruit and sometimes honey with the Greek yogurt in the evening. On top of having a bit of meat with that meal, of course. Sometimes I'll just literally have the Greek yogurt and protein powder. I'll mix in always with the Greek yogurt because it tastes great. And boom, have some berries, a little bit of fruit, job done. So simple, the 2 meals a day. Then also, I tend to feel better throughout the daytime when I'm having no carbohydrates in the daytime or low carbs, more energy. Just to recap, dopamine, energy levels, when you're eating things like meats, eggs, avocado, low carbohydrates in the daytime, maybe even some vegetables, right? Even green vegetables, fiber, which are low in sugar. Even that would class as the same thing, right? You're basically probably dipping into ketosis and stuff when you're doing that, and you get more sustained energy, ketones, all the rest of it. In the evening, backload improves my sleep. Tryptophan, those foods such as turkey, chicken, egg whites, dairy products like even cottage cheese, Greek yogurts, I believe milk as well, obviously, because that's dairy. Also, banana as well can really help you release serotonin, which converts into melatonin, and that can help with sleep as well, right? So some little tools here. So let's move on so all these things that really keep me lean as well are the things outside of the food. That's what sets the stage for the decisions that I make with food. It's the nighttime routine, which is the most important part. And you might get bored, I'm going to skip this. If you are not prioritizing a nighttime routine, this is the hardest thing to do. It requires more discipline. It sets you up for the next day, and it will change the game for you, right? So first of all, I want to share a quick afternoon hack before I get to that. So band sessions, there's lots of research now to show exercise snacking, they're calling it, right? I've been talking about this for ages. Band sessions, literally, you get a light pump on. I do 10, 15 minutes. I'll probably do one today. The days in between, the days when I don't go to the gym and strength train, I'll get the bands out, get a light pump on, 10, 15 minutes. Yes, it'll help me stay fuller, make my muscles look full and everything else. Naturally, it'll speed my metabolism up a bit, boost my energy. But the main thing is productivity. It'll boost energy, increases insulin sensitivity, and even for results, if you were to do a little, they call it exercise snacking, let's just say you did 10 minutes, you did like squats, for example, not non-stop, of course, right? Let's say you did even 5-10 minutes, rather than allocating, because a lot of people, they struggle to allocate, say, 30 minutes. To even some people struggle to factor that into their day, 30 minutes to an hour for a workout. Even if you factored in 10 minutes 3 times, it takes more discipline doing this because you can get sucked into work and other things you got to do, and then just skip it. Set your timer, allocate it into your calendar. And if you did this, you would get better results. It would boost your energy, balance your blood sugar out more, and work wonders for your cognitive health, right? So let's say 10 minutes, you did mainly kind of squats, right? And you just literally did, let's say, 20 squats, quick rest, 20 squats, quick rest. You did that for 5-10 minutes, right? So just legs, even 5 minutes. Boom. Let's say you aim to do 100 to 150 squats, split into sets for like a 5-minute period, and then get on with your day again. Then boom, in the afternoon, another 5-10 minutes. You could get your bands out, for example. If you got some dumbbells, even better, right? If you got dumbbells at home, you could then allocate like back, for example. You could get the bands out, do some rows with the bands, then maybe do some bent over rows or even a shoulder press with your dumbbells, for example, and do 3 sets. This would be a better way to do it. Rather than time, you do, say, let's say you've got dumbbells or bands, you could do 3 sets. Let's go back to the start. 3 sets of 10 squats with your bands, or split squats where you've got a staggered stance, right? 3 sets of 10, or even dumbbells would be better. Like I say, holding dumbbells in front of you. 3 sets of 10, rest, done. Whether that takes 5 minutes, whatever, done, go about your day. Lunchtime in the afternoon, you do 3 sets of 10, bent over rows with your dumbbells. Ideally, if you've got dumbbells, fantastic, bent over rows, or using a band, right? You could then do, if you're doing a band, I'd say to do maybe band rows, 15 to 20 reps. And then perhaps you could do sitting down on the floor or even standing up, pulling the band to your face. So you're doing face pulls like this, right? So you're hitting the side delts, the back of the deltoids. And then you could do 3 sets, right? 3 sets of 15 to 20 of each. So 2 exercises, band rows, face pulls, maybe a quick rest, 3 sets of 15 to 20 of each of those, right? Done, finished, go about your day. End of the day, then you could pick another body part, right? Where you could get the dumbbells and do shoulders, right? Overhead press. So you could get the dumbbells, do an overhead shoulder press, let's say 10 reps, nice and slow on the way down. And then you could do some, I would say to do some rows, shoulders and back, for example, do some more rows then. Actually, scrap that. Then you could do some lateral raises out to the sides like this with your dumbbells or with your bands. Done. 3 sets of 10 of each, quick rest in between each one, 1 minute to 2 minutes even. Finished. You would get better results doing that. There's research on this now. It's what I've always talked about. It's the same concepts as like full body training, right? You're training every body part. You're training the body parts more frequently. So, but also, like I say, just exercise, snacking. There's research on this now, insulin sensitivity, getting blood flow to the brain more regular. That's why doing regular walks is better as well. So that's a little hack, right? So I'll do that in the afternoon. Sometimes I get my bands out, get a quick pump on, and then either that or sometimes both. I'll sometimes even have a quick cold shower, right, to boost my energy. So those little exercise snacks or band sessions will work wonders for your energy in the afternoon, right? Particularly if you get an afternoon crash or just regular intervals throughout the day, that frequency is going to be better. So finally, Len, let me get into this nighttime routine. So you have to listen to this part because this is the most important part, ladies and gents, right? When it comes to me staying lean, healthy, energized. In the nighttime, my whole day is planned around my nighttime routine, right? This is where most people mess up. So firstly, in between each meal, I'd like to say, when I have that lunchtime meal, evening meal, I always do my best to give it at least 4 hours in between each meal just for my gut so I can digest the food properly, right? And then, so I'll give it about 5-6 hours normally. I have the first meal, let's say 12 o'clock, last meal, let's say 5 o'clock, 5-hour gap. Cut my food off at least 4 hours before bedtime, like I said before. I'll walk after my dinner, let my food digest, aid digestion. But before I get to that, blue light is the biggest killer of melatonin. Loads of research on it. People don't take it seriously enough, including myself. I've slipped a few times this week. And in fact, last night, my girlfriend, we woke up. She's dialed like me. She tracks her sleep as well. We woke up. I said I was awake for 45 minutes last night. Still had a decent sleep, but I was awake for 45 minutes. Normally, if I wake up, I go straight back to sleep. It's definitely the blue light. I was watching Netflix on TV. Now, it's not as bad, the blue light from the TV, so I was justifying it. I always wear my nighttime sleep glasses as well with the orange lens at least 3 hours before bedtime, which blocks most of the blue light, but it's still going to have some cognitive stimulation, which is the worst thing for your sleep. So in the nighttime, we were watching Netflix up until about 9:20. I normally go to sleep by 10 p.m. Need to give it at least an hour, 60 minutes minimum. I normally give it with no blue light. Most of the time is 75 minutes to 90 minutes in the week, but in the nighttime, in the weekends, I get a bit more slack only lately. So because I didn't turn the TV off till like 9:25, that is definitely why I woke up in the nighttime stimulated and it took me longer to go back to sleep. That blue light is the worst type of cognitive stimulation. The blue light sends a signal to say it's daytime, essentially. Stay awake, stimulation, cortisol, all the wrong kind of hormones and signals you want to send. And it definitely, I tracked it, I've tried and tested it, and I still make the same mistakes. I'm just the same as most people where I'm not perfect. So I'm away from your phone and laptop in particular at least 60 minutes before you go to sleep. At least 60 minutes, at a bare minimum 30 minutes. If you're on your phone up until you go to sleep, like most people, it's the worst thing you can do, by the way. Then start with 30 minutes. If you're someone who's pretty good and pretty aware and you put the phone down or laptop, say 30 minutes, 60 minutes, then give yourself an extra half hour. So go for 60 to 90 minutes. Give yourself an extra 30-minute window where you have no blue lights before bedtime. Make that a habit. It makes the biggest difference. And even if you're not aware of it, I'm telling you, it's a game changer. Then you want a dark room. So I dim the lights down. Even before that, we'll put the red salt lamps we've got on. We'll put them on, say 2-3 hours before bedtime. Turn off the artificial lights, the normal lights in the room. We'll put them on so the room's dark. You want to dim the lights down. You want to send that signal that it's nighttime to your brain. At least 2-3 hours before bedtime, either candlelight or red salt lamps, which are really cheap, by the way. The red kind of salt lamps you can buy in Kmart and stuff like that. And then I'll put my phone down. I'll stop working at least an hour before bedtime. Normally 75 minutes. I like to do 90 minutes ideally. And then what I'll do is I'll prepare myself for bed. Then I'll get the gym kit ready for the gym the next day. So I leave nothing to chance. That's ready. Or if I'm going for a swim, I'll get my swimmers ready, my towel, right? The next morning to go to Bondi for a swim. Life is good, right? I know. And then I'll cut caffeine off. I cut caffeine off. I've been a bit slack with this lately. Normally I cut it off by 10. So this is another thing with caffeine, right? Caffeine has a 6-hour half-life. So it depends on your genetics. Some people can metabolize it fast, some people's not so much. I think I'm kind of in between with this. But if I cut it off by 10:30 p.m., that's ideal for me. This week, I've been having it till about 11:30 some days, even 11:45 a.m. one day. But normally, I'll cut my caffeine off ideally at least 12 hours before bedtime. New research shows you want to give it at least 10 to 13 hours, ideally, for most people before you go to bedtime. So think, if you have, let's say like me, I have 400 milligrams of caffeine, right? 350, 400 milligrams. That looks like, 2 large black coffees, for example, like double shot in each one. Let's just say 4 double espressos equivalents, sometimes 5 into 2 coffees, though, is how I do it, right? I like them strong. That's about, let's say 400 milligrams of caffeine. If I have that, even if I cut it off at 10:30 a.m., for example, half-life 6 hours, that means after 6 hours, half of that caffeine, 200 milligrams, could still be in my bloodstream. So then you go into bed with a little bit in your bloodstream. Now, some people are fine. They can sleep. They get good REM sleep. Most people can't. And I track this. And it does have an impact if I take the mic. So cut that off ideally, at least if you can, minimum 10 hours before bedtime, at a very bare minimum 8 hours, but I would say 10 hours if you can, minimum. I like to aim for about 12 hours. That's perfect for me. So that's what I do. I cut caffeine off then. Lights down, I just mentioned. Walk after dinner, which really, really helps with a lot of things, including cravings. It helps me feel more satiated. So that helps keep me lean, that walk, like I mentioned last time. And then I always read a book. So I'm reading a great book right now. I like to get great autobiography books. You can see behind me here. I'm just reading a book. I love rap. Just a quick one on this, right? Whatever you love, if there's people you look up to and they've got an autobiography, people that you are a fan of, read their autobiography. They're the best books to read in my case because, humans love a story. And I love autobiographies. I'm reading a great one now. One of the members of Wu-Tang called U-God, who I don't even like. Not that I don't like, sorry. I don't even know him, I meant, sorry. But now I'm reading this book. I'm like, man, this is gripping me. So I'll look forward to that book then. And that gives me less temptation with the blue light, if that makes sense. So I read then in bed. I read at least half hour before I go to sleep. But prior to that, dim the lights down, no electronics, get my gym kit ready within that 60 to 90 minutes, brush my teeth, the usual stuff. Cut water off at least an hour before bedtime. Some of the experts say now for most people, like my girlfriend, for example, she needs to cut it off at least 2 hours before bedtime. It can have a negative impact on sleep. Think about it. Your body's still got to metabolize the fluid, which can have a negative impact on things like deep sleep, sometimes even REM sleep. So I give it at least an hour before bedtime where I have no fluid. And that is a game changer as well for sleep because you don't want to be getting up in the nighttime if you can help it for a pee, right? And then when I actually go to sleep, like I say, I'll wear an eye mask. I've been wearing that for about a year. A dark room is key. So I've got blackout blinds. The room is really dark. And then I wear an eye mask as well. A cool room. I use this company. I pay a lot of money for this thing, which covers my mattress. And it's got AI technology and it regulates the temperature of the bed. Unbelievable game changer. Last night, for example, it boosted my deep sleep by 20%. So throughout the nighttime, it made like 32 adjustments last night to the temperature of the bed because it adapts to your body. So my body, I think the sweet spot's about minus 2.5 degrees, right? My girlfriend is more like plus 1 degrees. Women and men are different, right? So it adjusted it by like to minus 2.5 and then minus 3 and then minus 2. So it's amazing technology. And that keeps the bed cool, which is key. I have aircon in the room as well, which my girlfriend hates, but I keep the aircon on. You've got to have a cool room and you've got to make sure that is dialed in. That's literally the most important thing. If you're someone who wakes up throughout the nighttime, the number one reason why, or one of the reasons why is going to be because the temperature of your room. Even if your body temperature goes up by under 1 degree up, that'll wake you up. That'll disrupt sleep. And then the other thing then, it's a cool room. It's a dark room. And then there was one other thing as well, which is obviously regularity is key, going to bed at the same time. But there was one other thing in terms of the room I was going to touch on there, but I forgot about. But that's the main things there anyway to dial in with sleep. So really, the evening routine, it sets my whole life up for success. That is the most important thing that keeps me healthy, keeps me performing well, keeps me energized, dictates my relationship with food, my recovery from the gym. If you haven't got some sort of bedtime routine, and you're covering some of the things I mentioned there. Don't try and change all that at once. If you can do one of those things, like blue light, for example, that'll be the most important thing. I keep my phone out of the room now, just for some context on that. So we keep our phones out of the room. We've got an alarm on that system that I use that keeps my bed cool. It's a vibration thing. It's basically a bed sheet, like a mattress cover, which goes over your mattress. That's all this is. And it's got a vibration thing on there, which we set as the alarm. So over the last kind of 6 months, we've been keeping our phone out of the room. And so get yourself a cheap alarm clock, get the phone out of the room. Literally, if you get up in the nighttime and you look at that phone, you are on the back foot and you're setting yourself up for serious failure with your health, with your sleep. Even if you're someone who goes, no, go back to sleep, fine. You are bullshitting yourself. It's like saying to someone who's really overweight, who's never eaten healthy, right? And they say, I eat healthy. They don't. They're overweight, right? But they're lying to themselves. Same as you. If you've never tracked your sleep, even if you're not tracking your sleep, you never tried dialing these things in that I've mentioned, and you're saying I sleep great, you're full of shit. The end, right? And finally, don't take offense by that. I'm just saying this because I care. Supplements. So I forgot to mention this last time. In the nighttime, I take magnesium glycinate. This is the best form of magnesium. So take in, I believe, say 200 to 400 milligrams. I would say 500 milligrams to play it safe, even up to 1,000 milligrams for people who are deficient. But let's just say 500 milligrams of magnesium threonate. I take that every night. Everyone should take magnesium. And if you're going to choose one type, magnesium glycinate is the best in the nighttime for sleep. It's good for absorption. It has a calming effect. And especially females, everyone, especially aging women over the age of, say, 35, you have to be taking magnesium. Glycinate's the best one. I take that in the nighttime. Everyone should take it, even men, though, to play it safe. Yes, you get a lot of magnesium from foods like red meat and dark chocolate, but it's not as absorbable. Even certain green vegetables and stuff like that, but not as absorbable. But most people are not going to get optimal amounts and absorbable amounts. Remember, when you're stressed, it has a negative impact on magnesium levels. So when you've got more stress coming in, you need higher doses of magnesium. So magnesium glycinate, and also this is a little hack here in terms of the supplement. Ashwagandha. I swear by this supplement. It is proven in research as well. It's an adaptogenic herb. And research also shows, guys and women, it boosts testosterone as well. What ashwagandha does, like a lot of other adaptogenic herbs, is it basically regulates your nervous system. So let's say you've got more stress coming in, it'll buffer cortisol. So ashwagandha buffers cortisol. So it slows down the release of cortisol and drops your cortisol levels. But you don't want to be taking this continuously. Research shows you want to take it roughly, let's say, 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. So cycle in ashwagandha. If you're someone who has a lot of stress in your life, someone who wants to improve sleep, and I use this with clients, ashwagandha is one of the only things that I use with clients that they say they report back with massive improvement, and magnesium does this as well. But ashwagandha even more so, they notice improvements with sleep, with taking this. Obviously, a lot of stuff we do with diet has a massive improvement on that, but ashwagandha helps. So what I'll do is I'll take that 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And if I'm stressed, I'll take it anyway. If I've got loads of stress coming in, I'll take higher dose. So I'll take like 2 capsules in the evening with my magnesium. So I take these two, let's say 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, ashwagandha and magnesium glycinate. And that has a massive impact on sleep. So yeah, you don't want to be taking ashwagandha all the time, because buffering cortisol short term can be good, but when you're buffering cortisol long term, it's not good. Cortisol is great. Cortisol gets you going, helps you achieve shit. It helps you move. It motivates you. We need cortisol to survive, right? It helps you literally be alert. So it's not all bad. So yeah, ashwagandha is a game-changing supplement for me as well, right? So that's something I want to touch on there. So look, I want to wrap this up with what you got to look at is I'm not perfect. And when we look at the daily habits, let me just summarize this now, right? So just because I, for example, eat mainly whole foods, 95%, I find it easy to stay in amazing shape all year round. That doesn't mean I'm perfect. I even mentioned on a previous episode about the 3 foods that you want to avoid if you want to get shredded, that I avoided to get really ripped, right? I didn't avoid, I minimized them. I want to be clear. I don't avoid them altogether. For example, yesterday, one of the foods was granola. I had some granola yesterday. We get this really good quality stuff in a shop nearby where it's just made from buckwheat. And it's like maybe 8 ingredients, but it's all real ingredients, natural cacao, buckwheat. I think, I can't remember, there's 1 or 2 other things in there. But I had that yesterday, right? But I moderated it and I had a good version of it. So let's say every maybe 3 weeks on average, I'll have a bit of granola, but I get good quality stuff. I don't buy UPF. Big difference. Peanut butter, I mentioned that, for example, as one of the foods that will essentially hold you back when it comes to you getting lean and keep you fatter, right? And it will if you store it in the house for most people, because it's very calorie dense. And it's one of those things where you have it out of habit. And even if you're having a small amount, like, 150 calories, a tiny bit a day, you add that up over the week, right? 150 calories times 7, it's over 1,000 calories pretty much. And you don't always need that, right? So it holds most people back. But yesterday I had peanut butter. So let's say once a week at the moment, I'll have some peanut butter, but I'm tracking it at the moment as well. So I know how much I'm having. So I'll moderate it. Maybe even twice a week. Maybe I'll even have some tonight, right? So, and the other food then, for example, was protein bars. Now it's very rare I eat protein bars now. I don't eat those at all, to be honest. They were the 3 foods, but I want to be clear here that I still sometimes eat those foods, but I moderate it and I'm aware of those foods, right? So I'm not perfect. Like I say, even with the caffeine, I talked about on the last episode that I have that. This week, I screwed up with that, right? And I was having it before training. I was having it early. Yes, I was hydrating first. So I was having my 1 liter of water and then having the caffeine probably about 45 minutes after waking. But I wasn't waiting until after training. I was having it before training. And yeah, I'm not perfect. Even alcohol, right? For example, I think I mentioned this. Last weekend, it was my girlfriend's birthday. I had some alcohol. Now, I don't drink very often at all. Literally, probably about, for example, we're going to go on holiday to Bali in a few weeks' time. I will drink some bintang. I like a few beers if I drink. Believe it or not, wow. I like a few beers if I drink. I don't have, shorts and stuff anymore. They wipe me out anyway in terms of a hangover. Wine, no, that's a thing of the past. But a couple of beers here and there, like pale ales I like here and there. And they have a beer called bintang in Bali, which I love. So I'll have like 2 to 3 beers here and there in the sun. I'll have it on an empty. I wouldn't recommend this. This is the thing, right? I have a lot of addiction in my family and alcoholism. So I like the feeling of alcohol. I love it. It must be in my DNA. So I time it so I'm on like an empty stomach, or at least I've given it like 4 hours after eating, where I'll have a few beers so I get a better buzz off it. I don't get bloated, and then I'll eat after that. So that's what I'll do in Bali. So I'll have alcohol on special occasions like holiday or my girlfriend's birthday and stuff like that, but it'll only be a few. And I managed to moderate it now. So this is the whole thing, right? Everyone says everything's fine in moderation, but a lot of these things are very hard to moderate. And trust me, take it from me. Moderation is difficult for me, for everyone. I find it hard to moderate anything, whether it's caffeine, alcohol. I find that a lot easier now. I used to struggle with that. I'm not going to lie. I find it easier to have a couple now and stop, which I never used to be able to. I used to binge drink. Caffeine and food, right? I struggle them. Literally, I lie to myself a lot of the times when I have like, let's say I have a little bit of granola, like yesterday, I had a little bit of granola, peanut butter. I said, right, I'm going to have like 40 grams of peanut butter. I had 50 grams, right? I know it doesn't sound like much, but I still lie to myself and believe my own bullshit at times. Granola, I'll have a little bit. Ended up having about 30, 40% more than I planned on having, right? So I'm not perfect. But the thing is, as long as you're making good decisions for the most part, you're going to be good, ladies and gents, right? But dial in that sleep routine. Play around with some of the hacks that I mentioned, like the caffeine thing. Perhaps in the daytime, maybe backloading your carbohydrates. If you're someone who has low carbs or keto or carnivore, then you might want to play around with carb cycling. It's going to help most people. Everyone's different though. And there's a lot of nuance here as well, right? So look, a couple of things I like to say. Number one is I'm going to be giving away my nutrition, fat loss, muscle building fundamentals guide, but also it's a nutrition plan which is geared towards you knowing exactly what to do with nutrition to get into great shape. I've broken down in there a shopping list, exactly how to have the right amount of calories and macros for what your goal is, the exact food you want to include and how to incorporate them into your daytime. It's literally everything you need to know with nutrition plugged into that guide, right? So all you got to do is simply just click the link in the show notes, and it's yours, right? So click the link in the show notes, and I will, as usual, pin it to the top of the comments, all right? And one more thing as well, don't finish up here yet. I am going to be doing a live mastermind, and that is going to be on April the, I forgot the date now. What is it? Try to remember the date now. April the 17th, Thursday, April the 17th, Sydney time. So in America, that'll be Wednesday, April the 16th. Game Changer Mastermind, which is just going to be clients and a handful of other people. And I'm going to be showing you exactly what I do with clients. I'm going to be showing you some client examples and the exact system that I use to help high performing individuals recharge their metabolism, melt fat and stay lean all year round and build muscle. So we have a process where it's metabolism reboot, fat loss acceleration, and then lifestyle integration. I'm breaking down the whole system, the exact training methods that I use with high-performing entrepreneurs and performers who have, successful people and just high-achieving people who have limited time. So exactly what to do to maximize results with limited time with your training. It's going to be mind-blowing. Don't miss this mastermind. I've got 10 seats available. All you got to do if you want to come to it is comment beneath this YouTube video or even on Spotify with the word results, and I will send you over the Zoom link and give you access, right? I'm only giving away 10 free seats, so don't miss that opportunity. All right, one more thing, ladies and gents. If you liked it, give it a like on YouTube, please. It goes a long way, and appreciate your support.